Today is February 4th. It's the 35th day of the year, and this is the On This Day podcast. If you've been listening since the very first day I started doing this show, some of this may sound a little familiar to you. And if you join the show later on in the run, this will all be new content to you. Either way, I hope you enjoyed today's show. On this day in 960, Zhao Kuan-yin becomes Emperor Taizu of Song, marking the beginning of the Song dynasty in China. An expert mounted archer as a young man, Zhao shows great aptitude and ability as a leader and rises through the ranks of the military. China has become fractured after the fall of the Tang dynasty in 907, and for years it's torn apart by rebellion, feuds, and warring factions. In 959, Chief Commander Zhao's patron dies and is succeeded by his 7-year-old son. Enemy forces are closing in, and Zhao's troops are not too keen to be ruled by a child. So in the early morning hours on this day in 960, Zhao is woken up from a drunken slumber by his troops and hailed as emperor. Zhao reluctantly accepts the imperial yellow robes on the conditions that his troops pledge unconditional allegiance to him, and that they refrain from looting and pillaging the capital. He names his dynasty the Song dynasty, and Zhao becomes Emperor Taizu of Song. Emperor Taizu will unite the kingdoms, and the Song dynasty will rule China for the next 3 centuries. Harry Longabaugh is a ferocious reader. As a young boy in the 1870s, growing up along the canals of northern Philadelphia, he reads all the pulp fiction of the day, which means he consumes a lot of westerns. He heads west at the age of 14 to be on the frontier and follow his lifelong dream of being a cowboy. But a devastating blizzard puts an end to his cowboy days before they even really get started. He's desperate, he's broke, he turns to larceny and gets thrown in jail for stealing a gun, a horse, and a saddle from a ranch in Wyoming. Harry Longabaugh does his time, and on this day in 1889, he receives a full and complete pardon by Wyoming Governor Thomas Moonlight. Governor Moonlight notes specifically in the written pardon he issues on this day that Longabaugh has shown good behavior and an earnest desire to reform. Harry Longabaugh emerges from jail without a penny to his name and no direction. But there is one thing he has after his stint in the pokey: a nickname, the Sundance Kid. After prison, he works as a ranch hand, works at a bar, and then he meets a kindred spirit named Butch, and together they take an interest in the railroad business. Born on this day in 1940, George Andrew Romero. Romero is born in the Bronx, and early on he discovers a love for the cinema. He attends Carnegie Mellon in Pittsburgh, and upon graduation, forms a production company with some friends. Together, they have a Bolex camera and a couple of lights from a hardware store. Very little experience, but guts enough to bill themselves as producers of industrial films and television. And with that kind of tenacity, they'll get work around town. Romero is hired to make several short films for a locally produced public television show starring a Presbyterian minister named Fred Rogers. Short films that are meant to help children get over fears by showing Mr. Rogers experiencing scary situations and making it through unscathed. George Romero will joke that the scariest film he's ever made is Mr. Rogers Gets a Tonsillectomy, that he was terrified trying to pull it off. But of course, that won't be the scariest film that he'll make. Not when he and his colleagues start producing low-budget films. In 1968, Romero co-writes and directs Night of the Living Dead, launching a franchise that will terrify audiences for decades to come, while also serving to critique consumerism and consumer culture and reflect the cultural and socio-political trends of the time. And they're a bunch of zombies, too.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
Stop it! You're ignorant.
They're coming for you, Barbara.
Stop it! You're acting like a child.
They're coming for you. Look, there comes one of them now.
He'll hear you.
Here he comes now. I'm getting out of here.
In the process, George Romero, born on this day in 1940, reinvents an entire genre of cinema. And passing away on this day in 1983, Karen Carpenter. A member of the popular 1970s duo The Carpenters with her brother Richard, Karen is best known as a singer, but she considers herself a drummer who sings. Growing up in Downey, California, she begins playing the drums in high school. When she's 15, she begins recording songs with her brother, who's a proficient pianist and an aspiring songwriter. Around the same time, she also becomes self-conscious about her weight and begins dieting. The Carpenters played jazz clubs in the late 1960s. They continue to cut demos, and in 1969, they get a record deal with A&M Records. Their first album is released in October of 1969. The album is a commercial failure, but Karen's vocals are strong, and their next album, Close to You, is a smash hit. With the money they're making, they buy 2 apartment buildings in Downey as an investment, naming them after their first hit songs, Only Just Begun and Close to You. You can drive down 5th Street and see them. They're still there. Karen usually sings in concert from behind her drums, but with commercial success, she's encouraged to step out from behind the kit and take a microphone center stage. As she is more and more in the spotlight, her battle with weight develops into full-blown anorexia nervosa. She continues to lose weight, and by the peak of their career in 1975, the 5-foot, 4-inch Karen weighs 91 pounds. Together, the Carpenters release 14 albums and sell a reported 100 million copies total worldwide. But Karen won't live to see those astounding numbers tallied. On this day in 1983, Karen is found unconscious in her parents' home in Downey and is rushed to the hospital where she dies from heart failure due to complications from her battle with anorexia. She is 32 years old. Karen Carpenter not only leaves behind an enduring musical legacy, but she also brings awareness to the dangers of eating disorders, anorexia and bulimia, that few had heard of before her passing. There are 330 days left in the year.